Congratulations. Seriously, you just happen to get Football Manager, or you happen to decide that you're going to get into it, or you've been playing it for a while and you just feel like you need some concepts about the game anyways, and so you are here. And honestly, Football Manager is my favorite game that I've ever played. It's why I have this channel, so you've made the right decision. But there are some things that you should know as you start your journey in Football Manager. And because I'm me, I've made a list of 10 of them. So roll it! Who doesn't love a good list? I love lists. Okay, number one, the first thing you need to know when you start playing Football Manager, you would think that it's all tactics. It is not all tactics. For example purposes, we'll be using the save that I'm currently playing on Twitch, which of course, if you want to watch, there's a link down in the description to watch the Twitch, and there's a link down in the description to watch the live channel where you can watch episodes of the save if you don't have time to catch me actually playing it live. But in this, you can see on the left side, we've got a lot of things that aren't tactics, and those things are very important. Football Manager creates a realistic environment for managing an actual team. And this means even though when you think about a game where you're not playing as the actual players, shouldn't it just be all tactics? No, it's not. The tactics screen is detailed, it is interesting, there are constant debates about where to put your players, and we're going to get into some of that stuff a little bit later, but there's also dynamics. This is the happiness of your players, the atmosphere, the cohesion, how much they support you in particular. There's a squad hierarchy, which of course you need a healthy number of team leaders and highly influential players to keep the lads in line and keep the team more consistent. There are social groups, the different groups that the players are hanging out in. Players that are not in a social group obviously aren't going to be as comfortable in the environment, and players that are in each other's social group are more influential. So you want team leaders in the social groups that can help rally those people that they get along with. And each one of the things I'm going to be mentioning, I can, and in some cases have, made an entire video about. So I recommend diving around the channel for that sort of stuff. But in the broad overview, you have in just the dynamics section so much more. You are in charge of your team's training. You can look at the calendar. You've got this abstract view of all these different types of training that you can run between matches. You are also in charge of the individual training of players. You manage the units that your players are training in, attacking or defending, which is usually important for where do you want your wingbacks and where do you want your midfielders to be working, the defensive or attacking units. You handle the mentoring. You set up groups to try and improve the mental status of players. You also lead the scouting efforts. You create short lists. You search for players. You assign your scouts assignments to go out and find players. You spearhead the development of your youth teams. You hire your staff. And by and large, you take care of the finances of your club because you are in charge of the investment of money into the playing and coaching staff at the club. There are a million things involved in Football Manager, and so when somebody asks me, is it just tactics? It is absolutely not just tactics. It's a ton of different stuff. And also tactics. But your tactics can be middling, then you can still win multiple Champions Leagues and have a really wonderful career if you're good at the other stuff. Number two, no two players are the same in Football Manager. If you're like me and you're coming from FIFA or some other football, soccer game where there are overalls and there are less attributes in the game, Football Manager has a lot of attributes and attributes that don't exactly drill down into one ability. In very few cases is there one attribute in Football Manager that will determine exactly how good somebody is going to be in a particular situation. As an example, FIFA has an attribute called defending. Right? There is no defending attribute in Football Manager. You have your technical attributes, you have your mental attributes, you have your physical attributes, and just something to think about, there are also about 10 hidden attributes that make up the personality, the clutchness, the consistency of each individual player, which you can see in scouting reports like this one. We're using the Zealand skin, by the way, which if you want to download is in the description. That's why it looks maybe a little different than your game. A skin's just something that changes the way the game looks a little bit, and we designed ours to just present you more information. It doesn't actually change anything, but it's cool. And so we can see this stuff up here. You have to hover over the pros and cons and click on them to be able to see this stuff in the basic skin, but they represent the hidden attributes, which means that compared to FIFA, which has 34 attributes, one of which is hilariously defending, Football Manager is going to be giving about 44 attributes to the individual players, and those mental attributes are more important because you are not controlling the player. You also do not have an overall. These stars might look like an overall, but they're not. But I'm talking too much about something that's going to be later on this list. Right now, when you look at these attributes, you have to get comfortable with the fact that no two players are going to be the same. Caleb Spear is unlike any other player in the game because no two players are going to have the exact same number, like 46 attributes in each one of them. You can still get your archetypes like the winger that has a lot of pace and can cross, but they're always going to be a little bit better and a little bit worse at different stuff because they might be smarter, but they also are going to be weaker. All those sorts of things that you're going to have to weigh in. Now, the comparison tool helps you identify this. So if I wanted to compare him to another one of my center backs, Daniel Beer, I can then come over to the attributes and you can see how that player differs. And if you need a little fill in on what something actually stands for, you just hover over it, then you can read. A lot of them are self-explanatory though. Number 3, staff responsibilities can take care of anything you don't want to do. If you've made it this far after watching number 1 and you weren't completely emotionally overwhelmed, congratulations, but I want you to know you don't have to handle all of that stuff right away. If you go into staff and staff responsibilities, there are a whole bunch of sections, say training, that you can then delegate to somebody else and you never have to think about it again. I mean, you can think about it, but you don't actually have to do anything with the training unless you want to come and learn it. And the best way to learn Football Manager is to staff responsibility away all of the stuff you don't understand and then slowly bring it back to you as you say, well, I want to learn training on this save. And so I'm going to take control of training and be in charge of all of it and schedule it. And that is what I'm going to do. And you can do that, but you also don't have to. You can do the same thing with scouting. You can do the same thing with your staff signing. You can have you sign one general manager, director of football, and have them sign everybody. I mean, then you can do that. You don't have to handle press conferences. Shoot, you can also assign your coaches to do part of your tactics, the opposition instructions. You can have your fellow coaches do that. Number 4, set pieces are hard to find, but very important. This is honestly for a lot of people that have been playing Football Manager for a while too. I can't tell you how many saves I look at for our Save Your Save series, and the set pieces aren't actually changed at all. It's right here on tactics, and you just go in, and it will not look like this, but it should, because the initial preset tactic that they have for set pieces isn't like this. It's bad. The defense is bad, and more importantly, the attacking part of the set pieces, very bad. It's not aiming for anything, and it doesn't get your big guys into particularly threatening situations. There's no super broken, super great set piece tactic this year, unlike stuff that I've made videos about in the past, but know that you can click on your set piece taker, and you want to just put your 2 biggest guys somewhere and aim at them with your set piece taker. If you have no big guys, take it short and put good long shooters at the edge of the box. That's essentially the whole thing, but you really should. Anything you come up with is going to be better than what the game has in here, which means you are leaving free goals on the table and you are allowing more goals than you should. That's specifically on corners, on free kicks, and on long throws. There's not nearly as much specificity when it comes to the instructions. If you have a great long throw taker, I would recommend the same thing. Put 2 big guys in there and aim for them with a long throw. Number 5, positions and roles are very different. Very different. I'm going to use an example, right? 2 guys that play the same position that do completely different things. You have on one end N'Golo Kante. He's one of the best players in the last 25 years. Clearly, he's got 8 lungs. He has 35 work rate on a scale of 1 out of 20, and he's certainly not bad at every other part of the game, but there's 3 of them on the field, right? And there's nobody else that's been able to do that. He plays as a defensive midfielder on ball winning. He tackles harder, which means he's running all over the field to try and close down opposition plays, and he can do that all game long. On the flip side, I've got 2. Andrea Pirlo and Sergio Busquets. They play the same position. Pirlo could play farther forward. I'm assuming Busquets could too, but he doesn't often. And so can Kante, honestly. But they play in their best spot as a deep-lying midfielder. Andrea Pirlo, though, is a deep-lying playmaker. Instead of looking to close down plays, he takes more risks, shoots less often, and holds the ball, looks to find those pinged passes, isn't doing anywhere near the same thing that N'Golo Kante is doing, and is taking advantage of a completely different set of attributes. Or maybe you have Sergio Busquets, who dribbles less, holds position, and drops in between the center backs to start play. The hinge point, that's a halfback. There's 3 guys from the same position doing 3 completely different things. So position is where that player is starting, but the role is what they're actually doing. And that should help frame your mind for the creation of your first tactic in FM. Number 6, stars change. A lot. I mentioned that there's no overall in Football Manager. Stars can fool you into you thinking that they are the overall. But if you go into staff, responsibilities, and advice and reports, you'll see something called provides player reports. And this is where you pick a coach that is providing the star rating. And as you might have figured out, if you look at your actual coaching team, and we find the guy that is providing that star rating, which for me is Philippe Oulefroy, his judging player ability is 11. And his judging player potential ability is 12. This is on a scale of 1 to 20, which means that that star rating is not 100% accurate. If I go to my squad and I go down to reports, then we can see the star rating of everyone in my squad. And Akos Keskis is given a 4 out of 5 star rating. He's a good player for the level that we're at in the Austrian Premier Division. But then we come down and we look at Owen van der Horst. Owen van der Horst is a brilliant player. Stupid good at receiving the ball with his first touch, distributing with his vision, his decision making, his passing, and his sublime, disgusting 18 out of 20 technique at 18 years old. He is tremendous at what he does, but he's only 3 stars. Does this mean that Akos Keskis is better than Owen van der Horst? No, never. And I like Akos. Akos said it right the first time, I think. The stars are never 100% right. They are a great guide, especially when you started a team to say, well, this guy's good, this guy's not okay, but they're not 100% right. And that includes when they're on the potential, right? If somebody's got 5-star potential, but that you don't see any ability in the attributes, then players can only improve so much over the course of their lives. They're not going to get all the way there if you don't see it in the attributes right now and they're not like 15 years old. So you can't sell out for the potential and the stars, and you can't sell out for the current ability on the stars. One last thing to keep in mind, the stars are also affected by form. It's kind of like the world's perception of the player, and they're relative to the team. So if you sign a very good player, everybody else's star rating is going to go down because relative to that guy, they're not as good. I just threw like 3 concepts at you, but I promise they all make sense. Better form, higher stars. Better players, worse stars for the same players. Yeah. Number 7, if your team is mad, they will suck. Now it's time to go back to dynamics where we hung out a little moment ago. If you anger people and you mismanage people in this game, you mistreat them, you don't give them the playing time they think they deserve, they'll get mad. And if they're important, this will go down. And if this goes down, your team will start playing a lot worse. There's also team cohesion. So if you upheave the entire team, the team doesn't know each other, whatever, your collective mental state will be below average, which will decrease their vision and reaction to events unfolding while playing. This is a very practical impact. Club atmosphere is going to affect the mentality of your team, and leadership support is how much they'll listen to you. So the mentality of the team, if your team's walking out there like Manchester United, like they don't care and they don't know what's going on, well then they're going to be a lot worse, even though they're very talented. So often, the reason people get fired, they get sacked in their save, is because they lose the clubhouse. In real life and in Football Manager. It's not your tactics. It's the fact that after a loss, somebody got mad and you couldn't handle it, and now all of a sudden everybody's angry and it's not coming back. Number 8. Your board wants more than just wins. You'll notice this the moment you start a save. They start talking about, well, you're going to do this and do that, right? And you're probably just clicking through it, trying to get through. If you go to Club Vision, you will see different club culture requirements. It places like Wolves, this will say sign Portuguese players and crazy stuff like that. There are so many different club cultures. If you're at Barcelona, it's play possession, right? But I'm at Floridsdorfer, and I've created this club culture, direct, counter-attacking soccer, signing players under 23 for the first team. That is exactly the way we've played the last 2 seasons, the way we've grown our club, and that becomes part of our club culture as you play. So this is all dynamic, but at the start, you will be judged on your ability to do these things, and there's a 5-year plan, which usually has to do with financial situations, selling players for profit, and so on. And then, of course, exactly what you're expected to accomplish when you're actually playing in the league. Now, how important this is obviously in the importance category. Then you can hover over it to understand exactly why they're mad. If you don't know exactly what something means, there's an I next to it. But if you are succeeding at all of these things, even if you're not doing very well in the league, the board will still love you. And if you're doing pretty well in the league and failing all of your club culture stuff, you can still get fired. Just something to know. Number 9, your money is realistic. It's the dream of every FIFA career mode player that you've ever had. You don't have to spend it before it's gone. There is a balance, a highly functional, dynamic, integrated, realistic financial system in Football Manager. You can see that in the income and expenditure. You got everything from like match day income, your merchandising, investments, interest that you're paying on loans, your gate receipts, fundraising that you've taken part in, corporate facilities income, like all this stuff that you can break down. And honestly, I haven't even gone and read all of it. But what I can tell you is that what it does is create a highly functional overall balance. That is the amount of money in your club, which isn't necessarily a bad sign. The financial status sums up your financial situation, and anything above insecure, you're basically fine. And if you don't spend your transfer budget, it will likely be there next season because it is coming from your financial situation and your balance. And if you want a higher transfer budget and a higher payroll, you should probably start selling players and getting the money into your balance. The downside to this is that the board will limit how much money you get from a transfer actually available in your transfer budget. This isn't a one-to-one. It's not a like-to-like. Like real life, the money from transfer sales will often be invested in other parts of the club, and it can be because you can actually go and ask your board for facility improvements, different financial improvements for youth coaching. You can build a new stadium. You can even seek out different affiliate clubs, expand your staff, get yourself a new contract, or schedule some sort of training camp somewhere that's now funded out of this overall balance. It's all funded out of the overall balance. The finances are light years better than any other game of this sort that I've played, which would be FIFA and FIFA. But they're so good, I haven't touched it in 5 years. The money's dynamic. Your overall balance is one thing. Your transfer budget's another. Got it? You hope your board's ambitious. Your board has some hidden attributes too. Number 10, sometimes you're just going to lose. I often equate Football Manager to playing poker, right? There are poker professionals, people that play poker for a living, and I guess that would be me when it comes to Football Manager. I still lose. 3 years ago, I got fired from Manchester United in Football Manager because we didn't win the league. Now, we won the FA Cup. We got to the final of the Champions League. I'm not bitter about it. Why would I ever be bitter about it? Why did we get fired? I have no idea. It's not the point. That's not the point. The point is you are not playing as the players, and sometimes the odds are not in your favor. I mean, this isn't the Hunger Games. You can't just whistle and all of a sudden all the odds are in your favor. You're going to lose. Somebody's going to score a long shot. There's going to be a horrific own goal. One of your players is going to have the worst game of their life at the worst possible time, and you're going to end up looking like that Benfica coach when Porto scores in the 94th minute to win the league, right? You're just going to fall down on your knees, and that's part of the fun. You're not in control of everything. You're in control of a lot of it, and you are trying to create that moment of magic where when Mark O'Hara scores a 112th minute header for me in the Champions League final with Celtic, we could have just as easily lost that game. It was a set piece, but we scored it and we won, and we signed that guy and we signed the whole team, and we came up with that set piece tactic, and that's the rewarding light at the end of the tunnel. But you are going to lose. And figuring out when you deserved to lose and when you actually deserve to win is one of the most important skills to have in Football Manager. Sometimes you just lose and you don't need to change anything. Just tell the boys they got unlucky and go out there and get it the next time. And that's what I'm telling you. If you lose your first match, you'll get it. Go get them. We'll see you on stream.